Before we embark on this incredible journey together, I have a small, heartfelt request. Please subscribe to my channel, give this video a like. It costs you nothing but means the world to me. And let me know in the comments which beautiful corner of the world you're watching from. Your support truly makes a difference. I found the receipt in her designer purse by accident. $47,000, cash deposit, Sterling Bank, October 15th, 2024. The same day, our son Michael was supposed to come home from the hospital. Instead, I'd received a call that morning saying the adoption agency had placed him with another family. Jessica had consoled me for weeks, telling me it wasn't our fault. "These things happen," she'd whispered, stroking my hair as I sobbed. But here was proof. While I'd been grieving the loss of the child I'd carried for 9 months, she'd been counting money. The receipt was tucked behind a Cartier warranty card, a watch I'd never seen her wear. I kept staring at the numbers, hoping I was wrong. The deposit timestamp was 11:47 a.m. I remembered that morning so clearly because I'd called her at noon, crying, and she'd seemed so shocked by the news. She'd been shocked, all right, shocked that I'd called while she was still at the bank. My hands shook as I photographed the receipt with my phone. Then I carefully placed it back exactly where I'd found it. The purse sat on our kitchen counter like it always did, expensive and pristine. Like everything else Jessica bought with money I'd never seen her earn. I'd given birth to our son in March. The labor had been complicated, and I'd needed emergency surgery afterward. For weeks, I'd been too weak to handle the legal paperwork for the adoption we'd supposedly arranged. Jessica had handled everything. She'd been so supportive, so understanding about my physical limitations. Now I understood why. The truth is, I should have known something was wrong the day she bought the Mercedes. "Surprise!" Jessica had said, jangling keys in front of my face. "Early birthday present for my beautiful wife." The car sat in our driveway like a silver monument to lies I hadn't discovered yet. A 2024 C-Class, fully loaded. The kind of car that cost more than most people's annual salary. "How did we afford this?" I'd asked, still groggy from my afternoon medications. "Bonus from the Peterson account," she'd said, her smile never wavering. "You were sleeping when the check came. I wanted to surprise you." Jessica worked in marketing for a mid-sized firm downtown. Her biggest client was Peterson Electronics, but I'd met Jim Peterson at company parties. His electronics repair shop did steady business, not bonus car business. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, she'd come home with a new wardrobe from Nordstrom, expensive jewelry, and a complete kitchen renovation that she'd arranged while I was at my follow-up appointments. The workers had already finished by the time I got home, leaving me with granite countertops and stainless steel appliances I'd never chosen. "You've been through so much," she'd explained. "Let me handle the details." I'd been grateful. The hormones from pregnancy and the medication for my recovery had left me exhausted and emotional. Having Jessica take care of everything had felt like a blessing. Now, sitting in our renovated kitchen with the bank receipt in my phone, I felt sick. I made a list in my head. The Mercedes, $65,000. The jewelry I'd seen her wear, maybe $20,000. The kitchen renovation, at least $30,000. Her new wardrobe, another $15,000. None of this matched her salary, even with the most generous bonus Peterson could offer. But it perfectly matched what someone might pay for a healthy newborn baby. The thought made my stomach lurch. I ran to the bathroom and threw up, then sat on the cool tile floor with my back against the tub. Everything I'd been too tired and medicated to notice suddenly made horrible sense. The adoption agency Jessica had chosen. I'd never met them directly. Every meeting had been while I was in the hospital or too sick to attend. She'd handled all the paperwork, all the communications. When they'd called to say the placement had fallen through, I'd only spoken to Jessica. There had never been a failed adoption. There had been a sale. My son hadn't gone to another family. He'd gone to the highest bidder. I needed proof before I confronted her. But I also needed to protect myself. By morning, I had a plan that started with the most obvious question. Where exactly had Jessica been on October 15th? I waited until she left for work, then opened her laptop. Jessica wasn't particularly tech-savvy, and she'd saved all her passwords in the browser. Her email account opened immediately, and I began scrolling through messages from October. There it was, an email from someone named Marcus Sterling at 10:33 a.m. on October 15th. Meeting confirmed for 11:30 a.m. Please bring all documentation as discussed. Payment will be processed immediately upon completion. I screenshot the message, then kept scrolling. More emails from Marcus Sterling going back to August, shortly after Michael was born. Buyer pre-approved for full amount. Medical records received and reviewed. Legal documentation being prepared. Medical records. My medical records. My pregnancy records. My delivery records. Information about my son that I'd never authorized anyone to share. The emails painted a clear picture. This Marcus Sterling wasn't running an adoption agency. He was running an illegal baby-selling operation, and Jessica had been his partner, not his client. I found her text messages next. Screenshots of conversations with someone listed as MS. Marcus Sterling, presumably. The texts were even more damning. She's getting suspicious about the money. Need to be more careful with purchases. Baby's medical records perfect. Buyers willing to go up to $50K. She's too weak from surgery to ask many questions. This is our window. I had to stop reading. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the laptop. These weren't the texts of someone who'd made a desperate decision. These were the calculated communications of someone who'd planned this from the beginning, someone who'd seen my pregnancy as a business opportunity. I printed everything. Emails, text messages, even Jessica's browser history showing her research into private adoption laws and parental rights termination. Then I drove to the one person I knew I could trust, my sister Rachel. Rachel opened her door, took one look at my face, and immediately ushered me inside. She'd been suspicious of Jessica from the beginning, though she'd never said so directly. Now, as I spread the printed evidence across her kitchen table, I watched her expression change from concern to horror. "Margaret," she said slowly, "this is criminal conspiracy. Not just the baby selling, but forging your signature on legal documents, identity theft, maybe even kidnapping." What do I do? First, we call my friend Detective Kim Wilson. She specializes in family crimes. Rachel was already reaching for her phone. Second, we document everything before Jessica realizes you know. Rachel paused with her finger over Kim's contact. "Are you absolutely certain you want to pursue this? Once we make this call, there's no going back." I thought about my son, somewhere out there with strangers who'd paid $50,000 for him. I thought about Jessica, probably planning her next purchase with blood money. Make the call. Detective Kim Wilson had the kind of direct, no-nonsense manner that made me feel safe for the first time in months. "Mrs. Harris," she said, settling across from Rachel's kitchen table with a digital recorder and a legal pad, "I need you to understand that what you're describing constitutes multiple felonies: baby selling, conspiracy, fraud, document forgery. We're talking about serious prison time." I'd called in sick to work, something I rarely did, but I couldn't function normally knowing what I knew. Kim had come to Rachel's house instead of the police station because she wanted me to feel comfortable telling the complete truth. "Start from the beginning," she said. "When did you first realize you were pregnant?" I told her everything. How Jessica and I had discussed having a child for years, how excited we'd been when the pregnancy test came back positive, how Jessica had been supportive during the difficult pregnancy, the emergency C-section, the weeks of recovery afterward. She handled all the adoption paperwork while I was recovering, I explained. "I was grateful. I was so tired and overwhelmed." "Let me stop you there," Kim interrupted. "You said adoption paperwork. You were planning to give up the baby?" "No." The word came out sharper than I intended. "We were planning to keep him. But after he was born, Jessica said I'd been so sick during the pregnancy and delivery that it might be better for everyone if we found him a good family. She said I'd agreed to it while I was on pain medication, but I don't remember that conversation. Kim made notes. And you trusted her memory over your own? I was on morphine for days after the surgery. Heavy pain medication for weeks after that. She convinced me I'd been confused about what I wanted. Saying it out loud made me realize how manipulative it sounded.
She showed me papers I'd supposedly signed.
Did you recognize your signature? I was too drugged to really examine them carefully, and I trusted her completely. Kim nodded. Can you access those documents now? I think so. Jessica keeps important papers in our home office. Good. We'll need to compare those signatures to known samples of your handwriting. In the meantime, I want you to continue acting normally around Jessica. Don't let her know you're suspicious. Rachel leaned forward. Is that safe? If she realizes Margaret knows, she might destroy evidence or disappear, Kim agreed. But if we move too quickly without enough proof, she could claim this was all a legitimate adoption that went wrong. We need documentation of the money trail, proof that Marcus Sterling is running an illegal operation, and clear evidence that Mrs. Harris's signature was forged. How long will this take? A few weeks, maybe more. I know that sounds like an eternity when your child is involved, but we need this case to be airtight. I'm also going to need you to consider something difficult. I braced myself. Once Jessica is arrested, the buyers who have your son will likely disappear. They'll know they've participated in an illegal transaction. We might never find him. The words hit me like a physical blow. In focusing on catching Jessica, I hadn't fully considered that I might lose any chance of finding Michael forever. What are my options? We try to track down the buyers before we arrest Jessica. It's riskier for you, but it might be the only way to recover your son. That evening, I sat across from Jessica at our expensive new dinner table and tried to act like I didn't know she'd sold our son. How was work today? I asked, cutting into the steak she'd prepared. Everything felt surreal, like I was watching someone else live my life. Busy, she said, not looking up from her plate. Peterson wants to expand the campaign for next quarter. Might mean some longer hours. Peterson, the client whose bonus had supposedly paid for our new lifestyle. I wondered if Jim Peterson had any idea his name was being used as cover for baby-selling money. That's good though, right? More work means more money? Exactly, Jessica smiled, the same warm smile I'd fallen in love with 5 years ago. And speaking of money, I was thinking we might look at houses this weekend, something bigger in a better neighborhood. The audacity was breathtaking. She wanted to use the money from selling my son to buy us a new house. Don't you think we should wait? With everything that's happened? Margaret. She reached across the table and took my hand. Her fingers were warm, familiar, adorned with the diamond bracelet I'd never seen before this month. I know losing the baby was hard, but we can't stop living our lives. We can have other children. Other children. Children she could sell if the price was right. Maybe, I said, forcing myself to squeeze her hand back. Let me think about it. After dinner, while Jessica watched TV, I searched our home office. She'd been right about keeping important documents there. I found a folder marked Adoption Papers hidden behind our tax files. The signature on the documents didn't look like mine. The handwriting was close, but not quite right. Too neat, too deliberate. When I was on pain medication, my handwriting had been shaky and loose. These signatures looked like someone had practiced copying my style. I photographed everything with my phone, then put the folder back exactly where I'd found it. My phone buzzed with a text from Detective Wilson. Can you meet tomorrow? Have some information about Marcus Sterling. I texted back that I could meet during my lunch break. Who are you texting? Jessica asked from the living room. Rachel. She wants to get lunch tomorrow. Tell her I said hi. And Margaret? Yeah? I'm proud of how well you're handling everything. I know it hasn't been easy. I looked at her, sitting on our new leather couch in our renovated living room, wearing jewelry bought with blood money, and felt nothing but cold fury. Thank you, I said. I'm learning a lot about myself lately. Detective Wilson's information about Marcus Sterling was worse than I'd imagined. "He's been running this operation for at least 3 years," she said, sliding a file across the table of the small cafe where we'd met. "We've connected him to 7 other cases of suspicious private adoptions. Always healthy newborns, always high-dollar transactions, always targeting mothers who were vulnerable due to medical complications or personal circumstances." I opened the file and immediately wished I hadn't. Photos of other babies, other mothers, other families destroyed by Sterling's operation. "Are any of these children?" "We've recovered 2. The others?" Kim shook her head. "The buyers disappear once they realize they're part of an investigation. New identities, different states, sometimes different countries." My coffee cup rattled against the saucer as I set it down. "So my son could be anywhere." "Mrs. Harris, I need to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. Are you willing to wear a wire?" "A what?" "Recording device. If you can get Jessica to admit what she did on tape, we can arrest her immediately. But more importantly, we can pressure her to reveal where your son is before the buyers have time to disappear." The thought of confronting Jessica while wearing a police wire made my stomach clench, but the thought of never seeing Michael again was worse. "What would I have to do?" "Confront her with the evidence you've found. Get her to explain how she got the money for all her recent purchases. Push her until she admits what really happened. It won't be easy." "When?" "Tonight, if you're ready. The longer we wait, the more likely it is that Sterling or the buyers will realize they're being investigated." I thought about going home to our renovated house, sitting across from Jessica at our expensive dinner table, and deliberately destroying our marriage to save my son. It felt like stepping off a cliff. I need to know something first. If Jessica admits everything, if I get it on tape, what happens to her? Kim's expression softened slightly. "Mrs. Harris, your wife participated in selling your child for money. She forged your signature on legal documents. She's been lying to you for months while spending the proceeds. This isn't a marriage issue anymore. This is multiple felony convictions." "How much prison time?" "Minimum 15 years, possibly life if we can prove this was part of an ongoing conspiracy with Sterling." The weight of it settled on me. Jessica, who'd held my hand during doctor's appointments, who'd brought me soup when I was sick, who'd whispered that she loved me every night for 5 years, was about to lose her freedom forever. But she'd already stolen mine the day she sold our son. I'll wear the wire. By 6 o'clock that evening, I was sitting in our living room with a recording device taped to my chest, waiting for Jessica to come home. Detective Wilson and 2 other officers were parked outside in an unmarked car. If things went wrong, they could be through our front door in 30 seconds. The thought should have been comforting, but I felt completely alone. Jessica's key turned in the lock at 6:43 p.m., exactly when she always came home. I heard her hang up her coat, drop her purse on the kitchen counter, call out her usual greeting. "Margaret, I'm home. How was your day?" "Fine," I called back, my voice steadier than I'd expected. "Can you come in here? I want to talk to you about something." She appeared in the doorway, still wearing her work clothes, looking tired but happy to see me. The sight of her face, unguarded and trusting, almost made me lose my nerve. "What's up?" she asked, settling beside me on the couch. I pulled out the bank receipt I'd found in her purse, set it on the coffee table between us. I found this. Jessica's expression didn't change immediately. She picked up the receipt, studied it, then looked at me with what appeared to be genuine confusion. "Where did you find this?" "Your purse, along with some other interesting things." Still no recognition in her eyes. Either she was an excellent actress, or she genuinely didn't understand why I was showing her a deposit slip. "Jessica, where did $47,000 come from?" She paused, looking at the receipt again. "I don't remember making this deposit." "It's your account number, your bank branch, the same day our son was supposedly placed with another family." Something shifted in her expression. Not guilt exactly, but wariness. "Margaret, what are you suggesting?" "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm asking directly. Where did you get $47,000 on October 15th? She was quiet for a long moment, turning the receipt over in her hands. "I think there's been some kind of mistake." "Show me your bank statements then. Let's clear up this mistake together." "I don't think that's necessary." "Jessica," I kept my voice level. "I found your emails with Marcus Sterling. I found your text messages about buyers and medical records and payment processing. I know what you did." The mask finally slipped. Jessica's shoulders sagged, and she looked at me with something that might have been relief. "How long have you known?" "Since yesterday. What I don't know is why." She set the receipt down, leaned back against the couch, and closed her eyes. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." "It started as a legitimate adoption," Jessica said, her voice barely above a whisper. I forced myself to stay calm, to keep her talking. The wire taped to my chest felt like it was burning against my skin. "You were so sick after the delivery," she continued. "The doctor said you might need additional surgeries. The medical bills were piling up, and my insurance doesn't cover everything. Marcus Sterling approached me at the hospital." "Approached you how?" "He was there visiting another family, said he specialized in private adoptions for families in difficult circumstances. He seemed legitimate, professional. He had business cards, references. But it wasn't legitimate." Jessica opened her eyes, looked directly at me. "Not entirely, no. But Margaret, you have to understand. You were barely conscious for weeks. The doctors weren't sure you'd recover completely. I was terrified we'd lose everything. So you decided to sell our son. I decided to find him a good family and accept compensation that would cover your medical expenses." Her voice was getting stronger, more defensive. "The buyers are wonderful people, successful, stable, loving. Michael will have opportunities with them that we never could have provided." "You don't know that." "I do know that. Marcus showed me their financial statements, their background checks, their home study. They're perfect for him." "They're criminals, Jessica. People who pay $50,000 for a baby under the table aren't wonderful. They're desperate or dangerous or both." "That's not true." "Then why didn't they go through legal channels? Why didn't they adopt through an agency?" Jessica was quiet for a moment. "Marcus said the process was faster this way, less bureaucracy." "Marcus said a lot of things, like how to forge my signature on legal documents. I didn't forge anything. You signed those papers. I was unconscious on morphine half the time and barely coherent the other half. You took advantage of that. I protected you." Jessica's voice rose for the first time. "I handled everything so you could focus on recovering. I made the hard decisions so you wouldn't have to." "Where is he, Jessica?" "Where is who?" "Our son. Where is Michael?" She looked away. "I don't know." "You don't know or you won't tell me?" "Marcus handles the placement details. I was never supposed to have contact with the adoptive family." "So you have no idea where our child is?" "He's safe. That's what matters." I stared at her, this woman I'd loved and trusted for 5 years, and realized I was looking at a complete stranger. "What matters is that you sold our son for money and spent it on jewelry and cars while I grieved." For the first time, Jessica looked ashamed. "I bought those things for us," Jessica said, her voice small and defensive. "You bought them with blood money." "Don't be dramatic. It's not blood money. It's compensation for making a difficult decision that benefits everyone involved." The clinical way she described it made my skin crawl. "Everyone except our son, who's with strangers he'll never understand, are not his real parents." "They are his real parents now, legally and emotionally." "Legally?" I leaned forward. "Show me the legal adoption papers, Jessica. Show me the court orders. Show me anything that proves this was done through proper channels." She couldn't meet my eyes. "You can't because they don't exist. This wasn't an adoption. It was human trafficking." "That's not—" She stopped, shook her head. You're making this sound worse than it is. How much worse can it get? You sold our child to strangers for money. I found him a better home, without asking me. You weren't capable of making that decision, so you made it for me. And coincidentally, it came with a $50,000 payday. Jessica stood up abruptly, started pacing behind the couch. The money was secondary. It was about what was best for Michael. If it was about what was best for Michael, you would have waited until I was recovered enough to participate in the decision. You would have gone through legitimate adoption agencies. You would have done home studies and background checks and legal proceedings. Marcus did all of that. Marcus is a criminal, Jessica. He's been running this scam for years. The police are investigating him. That got her attention. She stopped pacing, turned to face me. What police? Detective Kim Wilson. She specializes in family crimes. She knows about Marcus Sterling, about the other babies he's sold, about the forged documents and the illegal payments. Jessica's face went white. You called the police? I had to. Margaret, do you have any idea what you've done? If the police get involved, the adoptive family will disappear. We'll never know what happened to Michael. He could end up in foster care, or worse. He could also come home where he belongs. This is his home now, with people who paid for him like he was a commodity. Jessica sank back down onto the couch, put her head in her hands. I thought I was doing the right thing. The right thing would have been talking to me. The right thing would have been legitimate adoption if that's what we decided. The right thing would have been honesty. I was trying to protect you. You were trying to protect yourself from medical bills, from difficult decisions, from having to actually be a partner in our marriage. I need you to tell me how to contact the people who have Michael, I said quietly. Jessica looked up from her hands, her eyes red with tears I wasn't sure I believed. I told you, I don't have that information. Then I need you to tell me how to contact Marcus Sterling. Margaret, please, think about what you're asking. If you disrupt this now, Michael could end up anywhere. Foster care, group homes, is that really what you want for him? What I want is for him to be with his real mother, me. But what if that's not what's best for him anymore? What if he's bonding with his new family? What if taking him away from them now would be traumatic? I stood up, walked to the window, looked out at Detective Wilson's unmarked car parked across the street. They were waiting for me to get enough evidence to make arrests. All I needed was for Jessica to admit she'd been working with Sterling, that the money had come from selling Michael. Jessica, I'm going to ask you one more time. Where did the $47,000 come from? I already told you. Compensation for the adoption. Adoption or sale? They're the same thing in this case. No, they're not. Adoption involves legal procedures, court approval, background checks, home studies. What you did was hand over our son for cash. That's oversimplifying. Then explain it to me simply. Walk me through exactly what happened on October 15th. Jessica was quiet for a long moment. I could see her weighing her options, trying to decide how much truth she could afford to tell. Marcus called me that morning. He said the family was ready to finalize everything. He asked me to meet him at the bank after the documents were signed. What documents? Transfer of parental rights, medical records, birth certificate. Documents I never saw. You were too sick to review legal paperwork. Documents with my forged signature. Your signature wasn't forged. You signed those papers in the hospital. I was unconscious in the hospital. Not all the time. There were periods when you were awake. I turned back to face her. Are you seriously going to sit there and tell me that I consciously agreed to sell our son and then forgot about it? I'm telling you that you were heavily medicated and emotional and not thinking clearly. I made the decision that needed to be made. And collected $50,000 for it. $47,000. The rest went to Marcus for his services. There it was. The admission Detective Wilson needed. Jessica had just confirmed that she'd received payment for transferring parental rights to strangers, that Marcus Sterling had been paid for his services, and that it had all been done while I was incapacitated. How much did Marcus get? That's not important. How much, Jessica? $3,000, his standard fee. So the total had been $50,000, exactly what the text messages had indicated. I need Marcus Sterling's contact information, I said, pulling out my phone. What are you going to do? I'm going to find our son. Jessica grabbed my wrist. Margaret, please, think this through. Even if you find him, even if you somehow get him back, what then? We can't afford to raise a child. The medical bills from your delivery are over $40,000. We're barely making ends meet as it is. We were making ends meet fine before you decided to redecorate our entire house. That money is gone. Spent. If you pursue this, we'll be broke and possibly facing criminal charges. We? I didn't sell our son Jessica, you did. She let go of my wrist, sat back on the couch. If I give you Marcus's information, will you promise to think carefully before you contact him? No. Margaret, no promises. I want my son back. Give me the contact information. Jessica reached for her purse, pulled out her phone, scrolled through her contacts. His name is Marcus Sterling. He has an office downtown. She read off an address and phone number while I entered the information into my phone. Thank you. What happens to me now? I looked at her, sitting on our expensive couch in our renovated living room, surrounded by the evidence of her betrayal, and felt nothing but emptiness. I don't know. Are you going to have me arrested? The police will make that decision. Margaret, please. I know I made mistakes, but I thought I was doing what was best for everyone. Can't we work this out between us? Work what out? You sold our child. I found him a good home and accepted compensation that helped our family. Our family? Jessica, there is no our family anymore. You destroyed it the day you decided Michael was worth more to strangers than to us. I walked to the front door, opened it, and gave Detective Wilson the signal we'd agreed on. Within 30 seconds, she and 2 other officers were walking up our front steps. Margaret? Jessica's voice was small, scared. What's happening? You're being arrested. Detective Wilson entered our living room, badge displayed, followed by the 2 officers. Jessica Harris, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit human trafficking, document fraud, and child endangerment. As they read Jessica her rights, she looked at me one last time. I'm sorry, she whispered. So am I replied. But I wasn't sorry for calling the police. I was sorry I'd trusted her with the most precious thing in my life. 3 months later, I held my son for the first time since the day he was born. The investigation had moved quickly once Jessica cooperated with authorities. Marcus Sterling's operation had been more extensive than anyone realized. 17 babies sold over 3 years, generating over $800,000 in illegal profits. The buyers who had Michael were a wealthy couple from Seattle who genuinely believed they'd participated in a legal private adoption. When confronted with evidence of the fraud, they immediately contacted authorities and cooperated fully with the investigation. Michael's return wasn't simple. There were legal proceedings, psychological evaluations, and months of supervised visitation to ensure the transition was in his best interest. The Seattle couple, David and Sarah Chen, had bonded with him during the 4 months they'd had him. They were devastated to learn the truth, but they put Michael's welfare ahead of their own heartbreak. We love him, Sarah Chen had told me during one of our supervised meetings, but he belongs with his real mother. We just want to know he'll be safe and happy. The Chens received immunity from prosecution in exchange for their cooperation, and they've maintained contact with me. Michael will grow up knowing that for 4 months of his life, he was cared for by people who loved him completely, even though they couldn't keep him. Jessica was sentenced to 12 years in prison. She pled guilty to all charges in exchange for a reduced sentence and cooperation with the investigation that helped authorities recover 3 other children sold through Sterling's network. I haven't visited her, and I don't plan to. Some betrayals are too deep for forgiveness, at least not yet. The money Jessica spent was never fully recovered. The Mercedes was repossessed, the jewelry sold at auction, but most of the cash was simply gone. The medical bills from Michael's birth and my recovery created financial hardship, but my sister Rachel helped me establish a payment plan, and I qualified for several assistance programs for single mothers. Michael is now 7 months old, healthy, and completely unaware of the drama that surrounded his early life. He'll grow up knowing the truth, age appropriately, but for now he's just a happy baby who smiles when I sing to him and sleeps peacefully in the nursery. I finally got to decorate myself. The hardest part hasn't been the financial struggle or even the legal proceedings. It's been learning to trust again, to make decisions confidently, to believe that I'm capable of protecting the people I love. Jessica convinced me I was too weak, too damaged, too unreliable to make important decisions. Proving her wrong has been the most important victory of all. If you're watching this and facing betrayal from someone you trusted, remember, you're stronger than you know, and you deserve better than manipulation disguised as love. Trust your instincts, document everything, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Thank you for listening to my story. Please subscribe if this helped you, and let me know in the comments what lesson resonated most. Sometimes, the hardest choices lead to the most meaningful victories. Margaret Catherine Harris,